this still on? All right, here.
Step away.
You gotta turn that monitor off, right? That's all.
How about now? All right. Well, I got a treat for you tonight. So, my gosh, I don't even know how to introduce my brother, but when I can remember, you guys, I think everybody here pretty well knows me. But you know, when you're hungrier than anybody you know, and you're ready to get out of whatever religious dogma you've been involved in, and you want to go for more, and you don't have anybody out there that's really see, I gotta say this politely. When there's nobody around that you can actually touch and look across the table that's hungry enough to go after God, and that you're hungry for more, and getting out of what's just traditional and religious, and you become dangerous. You become isolated. It's a kind of a lonely place. It was for me, because I was the only one I knew. You guys know what I believe, and everybody don't believe what I believe. And when you're going after it, and you're not believing what everybody else believes, you see what I'm saying? And so there was nobody that I could sit down with and look across the table and coach me and teach me and say, come, this is the way. And you know, if you're going to get out of all this churchiness and religiousness and all this stuff and really get into some revelation and find out who God really is, you know, here, come this way. I didn't have any of that until I met Kirk Haskins. And then I knew there was at least two. And so this is the first guy that actually I could reach out and touch, and he'd lay hands on me and speak life into me and encourage me and just reinforce things that I was learning. And so he has no idea how much he means to me. There was times in my life I couldn't even pray for myself. This guy right here was praying for me. So you're in for a treat tonight. He's preached and taught all over the world. What? Ethiopia. Where else? Nicaragua. Going to Brazil. He's taught. He's worked in the healing schools at Rhema. He's taught in. I just couldn't even tell you everything he's done. So I mean, I was breeding cows today. Didn't even think I was going to get here in time. So he called and said he's in St. Louis. Was there anything going on? I said, yeah, come preach. So we're in for a treat. I hate the weather's bad. There's not that many here, but we're live and YouTube and all that anyway. So you guys just make welcome and receive from my brother Kirk Haskins. Got him, Joe?
Come on.
Where are we all?
See. Well, we're okay.
You did it? Did you do something with this?
I didn't. There we go. Well, welcome. Hopefully I'm not too loud. I have a big mouth, so. But welcome. Again, my name is Kirk Haskins. I live just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there's a few cowboys in Oklahoma. Right? When I went to Nicaragua, I found that there were a few cowboys there. Now, I don't know if there's any cowboys in Ethiopia. There might be. All right? So, Jason has already prayed for the service and on that prayer. And I'm thankful. As I'm talking, I want you to go to John 14. And I'm going to start with the 16th verse. I'm to say this to everyone. Whatever you do, whatever your vocation is, whatever your position is in life, whether you're retired, whether you're still working, you're not that in God's eyes. God didn't send his son so that you can get saved to be the same as the rest of the world. You're not of this world. The day you got saved, you became not just a citizen of heaven, you became a son or a daughter of God.
Amen.
Just like the song was saying when Elvis was singing that first song, you're blessed, child of God. Now, maturing in what you are is no different for you than it was for Jesus. See, we can't look at the Gospels and think, well, that's Jesus, that, of course, that's Jesus. He came on earth, surrendered his holy position, if you will. We know he's part of the Godhead. He is the Son of God. But he came here and did everything as a man. As a man, he had to learn who he was. As a man, he had to understand what was on the inside of him. As a man, he had to operate in the things of God just like he wants and desires for you to do. And you can do, right? There's no limit to what you can do, but you surrender to what he's called you to, and that's to be, and what he's created you to be is a son or a daughter of God. Now, if you're 15 or 13 and you're saved, you're a son or daughter of God. If you're 65 or 80, you're a son or daughter of God. That means something. Now, I don't want the sons and daughters of God not to know who they are and what they can do with what God has put on the inside of them. And the Holy Spirit said tonight, talk about me on the inside of them. Okay? Because this makes the difference in the midnight hour. This makes a difference when you're coming against challenges. It makes a difference if your children have gone astray. It makes a difference when the doctor gives you a diagnosis that most times they say, there's nothing we can do. There was a lady at the church I belonged to, Rhema Bible Church. And it's a pretty nice sized congregation, maybe about 8,000 people, 10,000, something like that. And so one time Pastor Hagen made a comment. He said, and I can't remember the lady's name, but let's call her Stella. Stella, are you here? And at the time, 35 years ago, she was diagnosed with a form of cancer, and they had given her 3 weeks to live. You know, cancer has a gospel. Diabetes has a gospel. You know, all you have to do is look at TV, and it comes on all the time. Sometimes it rings in your head, oh God, they have cancer, or whatever it is, right? And so she had 3 weeks to live. And she came forward one time, and they laid hands on her, and she was there 35 years later saying, there was no recurrence, there was no coming back from, the cancer didn't come back, because when God does things, he does things thoroughly. You understand? So we have to know, we have to rehearse in our minds and our hearts who we are, because in the scriptures, God is screaming to you, I've made you just like me. All right? All right. Actually, in John 14, I'm going to read a little bit earlier. I'm going to go to verse 11 in John 14. Believe me that I am, this is Jesus speaking, believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. Interesting. In fact, in verse 10, he says this, believe you not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwells in me, he does the works. Who did the works? The Father. And where was the Father? He was in Jesus. Jesus didn't say he did the works. Now, he was the hands and the feet and the voice on this planet when he was in the flesh. But it was the Father in him doing the works. Let me ask you a quick question. Where does the Father live now? Oh, there you go. Right? You're supposed to, right here. He lives in you. So when there's something that you need, who does the works? The Father in you does the works. But you still have to believe by faith on what you have on the inside. Okay? So now, let's go to verse 16. I'll start there. Now, this is Jesus still speaking. I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter. It's interesting that he said, another comforter. Another. Well, Jesus was their comforter while he was here. Right? But he said, I'm going to give you another one of the same fashion, of the same kind, of the same magnitude as me. And he's talking about the Holy Spirit. He's our helper. But so few believers, so few sons and daughters of God understand just how powerful this helper is on the inside of them. Right? He says, I'll give you another comforter that he may abide with you for 5 minutes. Wait a minute. Wait, what does it say? Forever? Forever. So there's no, you don't have to pay a toll to get more. Right? You don't have to be at some churches where you have to pay your way to the blessings and the grace of God. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is know that he's with you forever. I met a gentleman that was a minister, right? And he was at Choir the Fire. It's a national youth ministry, right? He grew up in Indianapolis. He was a gang member. Actually, he was a gang leader. But he had a praying grandmother. Right? A praying who interceded for him for 19 years. She died with the prayer of, save my grandson. He said that he had been shot 19 times and had been stabbed 38 times. Not a person that you want to invite to church. You understand? I don't want him in my neighborhood. Okay? But when you intercede as a son or daughter of God for anyone, God hears that, takes the authority that you have to go after that person's heart. That's how powerful you are in this earth. Now, if he was a gang leader, and he had that kind of stuff happen in his life, I'm wondering, what did he do? Do you understand? For God to go after somebody who's living a reckless and crazy life, somehow that person has to be kept, because you know the enemy, whether you're saved or not, wants to kill, wants to steal, and wants to destroy. And he does not play fair. You understand? Yes. It's like by any means necessary to take you out. That's why it's so important for you to understand who you are and what you are. And to see this man ministering and how much power and how much anointing was on his life, I'm like, oh my God, that grandmother filled the gap, and God moved on this man's life. When he got saved, he had to leave Indianapolis, because you don't deny those bonds that you make in that type of lifestyle. There's a man in Tulsa, Italian. He's an Italian man. He was a made man in the mafia in New York. The New York mafia. I don't know what crime family he was in for years. And eventually he had to turn state's evidence against those that he was with. And of course, they had to put him in witness protection. And who goes to the middle of the country in Oklahoma? Nobody. Right? Now there's mafia in Tulsa. I know they are. Right? But he was there. Right? So now he's in witness protection and changed his name and all that kind of stuff. And somehow he got to one of the really nice churches there that believes that there are sons of God once they're saved. This man got saved. Right? And you think, well, just stay low key, don't do anything. No. He came out of witness protection and has been living openly, as a Christian, as a believer, understanding what he did. Now, he knows what he did. He knows what he ordered. He knows what he saved. It's interesting. Once you get saved, I don't care what you did before. I'm not saying that people got to like you, but what you did before. He said, behold, all things have become new. Old things have passed away. You're a new creation in Christ. If you're this new creation, God is giving you equipment and power that you can use where you need it to be used. Right? And you can find this man on YouTube. I wish I knew his name. I'll tell Jason. He'll tell you, because it's interesting. Now, I'm not saying that you guys are criminals, no. I'm not saying you guys are the best guys in the neighborhood. I'm not saying that. But the day you got saved was a change in your life. The day you got saved, there's power that you have. The enemy knows who you are. And the only test you'll ever get is from him to see, I wonder if they know who they are. I wonder if they know, if they believe. Because God does not test you. I don't care what you say. James talks about it. He does not tempt anybody. He cannot be tempted. And that word tempted means test. Why would he? He knows where you are. He knows all things. But the enemy doesn't. So this is why it's important. Right? So this comfort is going to stay with you forever. Now, verse 17. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it sees him not, neither knows him, but you know him. For he dwells with you and shall be in you. Now he's talking to people now that are not saved yet. That's why he said he shall be in you. They weren't saved. The disciples did more things before they got saved than most of us do after we get saved and filled with the Holy Spirit. You remember, he gave the disciples and says, go out, 2 by 2, to cities I'm going to come to and preach this gospel of the kingdom. Now, I don't know what gospel they were preaching, because it was not the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Because he wasn't dead yet, and they didn't even understand it. But they were preaching the gospel and demonstrating the gospel. Jesus just gave them his mantle. And all of a sudden, they're healing the sick and raising the dead and casting out demons. And whoa! If that wasn't enough, he commissioned 70 more. Unsaved folks. They weren't saved. There was no grace message then. Everything was law. Do you understand? Do you understand? Thank God for the grace message, but if you don't know who you are, grace allows you to live above and beyond sin, yes, but it also allows you to act, walk, believe, stand as God in the earth, as the Christ in you. Because you have Christ in you. The same Christ that Jesus Christ had. Do you understand? All right. Now. So here. So even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it sees him not, neither knows him, but you know him. He dwells with you and shall be in you. Jesus said, I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. Who is going to come to who? He is going to come to you. Now, most of us, I don't know everybody if they're baptized in the Holy Spirit, if they believe that or not, but the day you got saved, the Holy Spirit moved into you, right? There's one person I know, he learned about the healing ministry at the turn of the century. And he made this comment, because he went after it. He went after everything in himself, went after God. So he understood healing. So he would go after it, and he would pray for folks and that kind of thing. He said, I've done more healing before I got baptized in the Holy Spirit than most people do after they get baptized in the Holy Spirit. He said the day he got baptized in the Holy Spirit, the increase of the power of God was so dramatic that wonderful things happened that if he described them, most of us would not even believe. And it's actually in the Word. We just don't, they kind of water it down sometimes when in the translator. You understand? So this same Holy Spirit is the Holy Spirit that lives inside of you. And he said, tell them about me. Tell them why I'm inside them. Tell them. I said, okay. All right. So then, let's go to 1 Corinthians. You know, we have the Godhead, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I grew up in a Baptist church, and of course, they taught about the Trinity, and most believers should understand what the Trinity is. And so when I would pray, I got saved at 8 years old, so, I don't know if I was the best Christian. I just got saved at 8, and I grew and I learned, and what they didn't teach me, I didn't know. What they did teach me, I knew. So one time I'm praying and I said, and I ended my prayer in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, what is the Holy Spirit? Why is he part of the Godhead? What do we need him for? What is it? That's my question to God. What is it, God? What is it? And so it took him a few months to get me to a church. And there I went, what do you think the pastor was teaching on? The Holy Spirit. I learned so much in those first 2 weeks, and eventually I was baptized in the Holy Spirit. And the day I got baptized, for about 2 to 3 weeks, I felt like I was 2 feet off the ground. I'd have to stomp my feet to make sure I was on the ground because something had changed on the inside, okay? And the more I asked, the more I would learn. The more I was, you ask God a question and expect him to answer. This is the relationship he has with you. You know how much he loves you? God is a stalker. He stalks you. He counts the hairs on your head or lack thereof. Do you understand? I want you to know how personal he is with you. He listens to you. He knows your cries, he knows your fears, and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So now, in 1 Corinthians 14, let's see, I want to say, is it 7? Make sure I'm doing the right scripture. Paul is talking. And I looked it up. I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. Yes. I'm going to start at the 17th verse. 1 Corinthians 14, 17. This is Paul speaking. For you verily give thanks well, but the other is not edified. Now he's having a discussion. He's talking about speaking in tongues in church. He said, I thank my God, I speak with tongues more than you all. Okay, now here's Paul. Wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, gave us a ton of revelation, particularly about the grace of God. In fact, he said, if someone preaches another gospel, let him be accursed. And his message was about grace. Peter even said, it's hard for me to understand what Paul is saying. Because remember, all the other disciples, they were under law. They still had the law mindset. But Paul got caught up into the third heaven. Some things he just couldn't even say. He couldn't even say to us. But here he says, to the Corinthian church, which loved to speak in tongues. Now, if I sit up here and speak in tongues and spoke in tongues and trying to preach a message, most of you look at me like I'm crazy. And that's what they were doing, right? But yet, he didn't say it was a bad thing for them to speak in tongues, just have some order about it. And yet, he spoke in tongues more than them all. We can take that in 2 ways. Individually, he said, you know, if you do 2 hours and you do, I probably do 3 or 4 or whatever. So I do more than y'all. But he probably spoke in tongues collectively more than all of them. Because you think his journeys, he's on a boat, he's praying in tongues. He's walking, he's praying in tongues. There's record that he would stop at various towns that spoke different languages and he would preach them in their languages by the Holy Spirit. All right? Which is one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. All right? He would do that. And he would go on his missionary journeys. But what the Holy Spirit said to me, he said, there are people here, there's 3 kinds. He said, there are people here who always make the right decision. He said, the other people here never make the right decision. And the other group is in between. Let me ask you a question. Do you think God knows you? Raise your hand if you think so. Right? Do you think he understands, like you're walking down the street, he knows what's down the street? You think so? Okay. For you. Right? Do you think he knows what's around the corner? And you know you don't know what's around the corner. Do you think he can prepare you? Now, so what is the Holy Spirit to do in your life? What do you allow him to do? He lives on the inside of you. He's activated by the Word. But if you don't activate the Word in your life, he kind of sits there in the easy chair twiddling his thumb. And here's the power of God to do everything you need in this life. Do you realize you can affect your neighborhood, your community, by praying? And praying in tongues. You know what's interesting about praying in tongues? Who gives you the tongue? God does. The Holy Spirit does. Why do you have to pray in tongues? Because I hate to tell this to you guys, some of you guys are going to want to stone me when I say this. God is not in control. Not on this earth. He gave authority to Adam. Adam screwed it up. But he gave the authority to man. God is not in control. We can walk through that, but I don't have time. If I have time, we'll do that. But he's given authority to man. And the day you became a son or a daughter of God, it's your authority in this life. If you don't exercise it, it will not be exercised.
Amen.
You understand?
Amen.
No, the enemy can't do. Okay, he told me to tell you, because some of you don't believe me. Where do I want to go from? I think Colossians, that's where I'm going. Keep your finger in Corinthians.